and maybe a smile too. Becky Sullivan, NPR News.
Unless you're a Purdue fan like me. Anyway, we suffer on. It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Steve Inskeep.
And I'm Michelle Martin.
Oh. It is 6:50. You're listening to Morning Edition on WNYC. Marketplace Morning Report is next. Minnesota's Attorney General, a Democrat, is suing the Trump administration for the tactics ICE is using in Minneapolis.
We do not need federal authorities to help us maintain order. We need them to stop doing things. That is what is needed in this situation.
That's in about 15 minutes from Morning Edition on NPR and WNYC. Mid-20s with clear skies on this holiday. We'll have more clouds, a high near 32, but feeling much colder than that with those strong winds. Mid-teens tonight, but feeling like the single digits with strong winds. It's going to be cold.
WNYC is supported by Perlman Performing Arts Centre, presenting The Visitors, which captures one of the most pivotal days in Australia's history, January 21st through February 1st only. Tickets at pacnyc.org.
On Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we celebrate the life and legacy of the civil rights leader. Author Jonathan Eig joins us for an in-depth conversation about his Pulitzer Prize-winning biography, King: A Life. We'll discuss King's childhood, his relationship with Coretta Scott King, his activism, and his achievements. I'm Allison Stewart. Join us for all of it, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
The fight over Greenland is now an economic one.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. YubiKey helps protect important digital applications and services. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com. And by Ninja One. Ninja One unifies IT operations for businesses globally with solutions to support IT resilience and operational efficiency. Unify IT. Simplify work at ninjaone.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. President Trump wants to buy Greenland, though he hasn't ruled out military force either. And now he is threatening to increase tariffs on 8 European countries unless they agree to let the U.S. purchase the Danish territory. The European Union is now considering retaliation with its own tariffs on U.S. products. All of this is sure to come up at the World Economic Forum in Davos, which kicks off today. Marketplace's Nova Safo has more.
President Trump over the weekend said he would raise import taxes on goods from 8 European countries, including Denmark, Germany, and the UK, which is not part of the European Union. Trump and EU leader Ursula von der Leyen are both scheduled to attend the World Economic Forum in Switzerland this week. And Hoesuk Lee Makiyama, director of the Brussels-based European Center for International Political Economy, says the first order of business for EU leaders will be to ratchet down trade tensions.
Basically trying to talk down Mr. Trump and trying to rewind the tape a little bit.
European leaders are also set to hold an emergency summit this Thursday to discuss tougher measures should talks fail. Lee Makiyama says they have the option of a new economic tool commonly referred to as the trade bazooka.
What it allows you to do is that you can go after a whole different set of items rather than just goods,
including tech companies and their services and intellectual property rights. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index closed down 1% today. Japan's Nikkei closed down 0.7%. U.S. stocks and bond markets are closed today in observance of Martin Luther King Day. Normal trading hours resume tomorrow. But we still got one number for you, $18 trillion. That is the combined wealth of the world's billionaires. That number is the highest it has ever been after surging 16% in 2025 and 81% since 2020. This is according to anti-poverty group Oxfam, which points out that 1 in 4 people worldwide struggle with food insecurity, and nearly half the world's population lives in poverty.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by GEP. With GEP Key, Agentic AI, and GEP Smart Software, GEP is at the forefront in agentic procurement orchestration and autonomous supply chains. And by Fidelity, a dedicated advisor can help create a comprehensive wealth plan. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
China's economy grew at 5% last year. That is despite economic challenges, not least of which is President Trump's trade war. One reason is that China's industries are adapting, and that is having spillover effects in the rest of the world. Last week, China reported its largest annual trade surplus ever. That means China is exporting a lot more stuff than it's importing, even though it is sending less stuff to the United States. So where is all that stuff going? Well, more of it is going to the EU and UK, and there are pros and cons to that. Jay Shambaugh is professor of economics and international affairs at the George Washington University. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
So tariffs cut down how much we in the U.S. buy from China, but all that stuff, I guess, has to go somewhere, which is everywhere else. How big is this shift?
It's pretty large, especially when you're talking from China. Tariffs don't necessarily change how much you import or export, but they very much redirect where they are, because it's not like we have a flat tariff on everybody. Our imports from China are way down. Europe's imports from China are up a fair amount.
How is that showing up in Europe? Because, I mean, someone's got to all of a sudden decide they want to buy more of this stuff.
So I think you could divide it into two types of goods. So some, I think, is what we might think of as kind of cheap products that are somewhat disposable goods. Part of it is just over the last 3 years, the real value of China's currency has fallen quite a bit against the euro. So China has had very, very low inflation, in some cases deflation in some goods. Europe's price has been rising, so the relative cost of goods has been going up for European goods relative to China. And then the euro versus the RMB has moved in a way that has made Chinese goods just cheaper in Europe than they used to be.
Does this pose a threat to manufacturers in Europe or the UK or wherever else all this deluge of products is headed?
There are some goods that, transparently, Europe isn't making a lot of right now. And so that really may not be the most important thing. Partly it may just be replacing goods that were coming from Mexico or were coming from Vietnam that are now going to the United States. And I don't think that poses as big a threat. On the other hand, the longer, kind of more systemic shift where Chinese goods overall have been getting cheaper, and crucially, they've been shifting towards goods that used to be core manufactured goods for Europe, that you really do see concerns in Europe. In some goods, they may not care. Chinese solar panels are very cheap. They're selling them below cost because they've produced far too many. If Europe wasn't producing solar panels to begin with, they might say, great, we needed some cheap solar panels. On other goods, whether it's batteries or electric vehicles or chemicals or machinery, those are real threats to Europe's production model.
The EU has agreed to impose a fee on imported small packages starting in July, and it'll eventually close the loophole that allows small packages to go in without being tariffed. The UK is going to do the same. Is this going to be effective?
I think it depends on what you mean by effective. The whole point of the de minimis exception was if average tariffs are 2% and the good is $200, it's just not worth the paperwork for the $4. The issue is when we've moved to a world with realistically much higher tariff levels, then that de minimis exemption did become more of a loophole. It will be effective in that it will make the goods more expensive. Whether they'll import a lot less or not depends on how big a fee they put on them.
Jay Shambaugh is professor of economics and international affairs at the George Washington University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American.
WNYC support comes from Wisdom Keepers, a new PBS series that explores the timeless question of who we are and where we're